Welcome to Dwelling Beyond with Brittany
and Satara.
This is our 5th episode of the podcast brought to you by Dwelling Productions. And we are very excited to be back with you all and to have our friend Carlos as our special guest today.
Hello, hello.
Yeah.
Woohoo! So, Carlos, tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you?
I am Carlos Tolbert. I am originally from New York. Been in Winston-Salem about 12 years. Moved down with my wife and 3 kids. Wished I'd moved from New York a lot sooner. We've loved Winston-Salem. Yes.
Yeah, me too. It's a good city.
It is a wonderful city.
What do you miss about the food in New York?
Everything. And being able to get it at all hours
Yes,
of
that
the
is-
night.
Yeah.
Have you been to Chicago?
I have not.
So I can't ask you who has the best pizza.
I would still say New York.
Okay.
Well, I like it.
So, we really wanted to have you on here. So as you know, Dwelling Beyond, we kind of like to go beyond the titles and beyond what we do. So I would love to just learn more about your journey to City with Dwellings. And then, of course, maybe after the break, we'll kind of get into your role with the past winter shelter and things like that. But I really would just love to dive into what led you to do this type of work.
Well, the founder of City with Dwellings, Russ May, lived in our neighborhood, and my wife and her mother, my mother-in-law, ran into Russ one day out in Sunnyside neighborhood, and we became friends. And early on, I think it was 2012, Russ and a few other pastors had gotten together and realized that there was a huge gap in the providing services for the homeless during the inclement months, particularly through November through the end of March, and that the permanent shelters here in town would become overcrowded. So thus there was a need for additional shelter beds. And when he embarked on that endeavor, it was completely started with volunteers initially. And I was one of the initial first volunteers to start providing emergency overflow shelter in the winter months.
And what did that look like?
Well, I mean, to say the least, it was a little bit chaotic, but I mean, nonetheless, there was always that sense of compassion and treating folks with dignity and really meeting them where they were. And also having the low barrier approach. So, that was very important to Russ and the founders.
Mm-hmm. And what is something now previous to meeting Russ and this connection? Had this already been something you were kind of doing before, or were you in a whole different field or an area of worker? No,
I mean, I have somewhat of a storied past, unlike so many of us do. And in my early 20s, I had experienced homelessness myself from plenty poor choices and bad decisions. So I knew firsthand what folks were up against and in carrying all your things with you and trying to seek employment and wondering where you were going to leave your things and the whole gambit of being homeless on the streets. And I was intimately aware of that existence and how hard and challenging that could be. So when the opportunity came to be able to provide assistance for folks that were presently in that, traveling in that space, it just seemed like the natural thing to do is to want to help and to have that firsthand knowledge and knowing exactly what folks were going through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah. I imagine that helps to guide your work, I suppose, with you having an insider's view of, like, the rest of us are not as familiar with homelessness and addiction and all of the things. And we love our community and try to do all of the things, but to have firsthand experience is another level of being able to do well at your job, which I think is pretty cool.
mean, lived experiences has definitely has its benefits.
Yeah.
And it allows me to connect with folks on a level where they know that I'm sincere in whatever
Right.
I'm offering at that time, because it's not something that I've read in a book. It's something that really I've lived firsthand. So it's an easy connection for sure.
And I kind of want to kind of round that back to what has it been like as someone who kind of seen it turn from an idea and then kind of you've been along the journey. I mean, what has it been? Of course, we can talk about like the growth, but more so just basically seeing your the fruits of your labor, seeing people be homeless and then being a part of helping them get housed and you've done it for many years. So what has that been like? Just kind of course, being a pillar within the journey, but like kind of just watching it and seeing how people have came.
Well, I mean, I look at it in the sense that I hate to say that it's part of the journey, because I think it's a human right that everyone should have a home and have somewhere to, close a door behind them and have some peace and some solitude and to feel safe. But in the same token, homelessness or being unhoused has been around from the very beginning of time, I believe. And it's easy to see that folks who didn't have eventually move from not having, for whatever their circumstances, to having their own places. Like, I don't even know how to describe it, but it's something that's just so human that you want to see somebody have their own space and to feel safe. It's a natural thing to want to see somebody have what you have. And I guess the transition of seeing folks not have for whatever reason and then to be in their own place it's really special. It's just a really special.
Yeah, and I would just love to know, I'm curious to know, have you always been in the same role? And of course, I'm pretty sure, like us all, it's kind of, you have your title and then you do a million things. And so how have you kind of continued to, find your way as what you enjoy doing and like the different jobs that you may have held? And kind of where you are now?
Well, I started as an overnight monitor, and that was just essentially being on the front lines, working with volunteers and the overnight guests, and providing a safe space so that folks were safe, were fed, they came in and got something to eat, and just had a peaceful night. I realized early on that in many instances, my kindness and just being pleasant may have been the only kind or pleasant thing that some of these folks were receiving all day. And for those that came in and their attitudes represented the neglect or disrespect or being treated inhumanely during the day, and they came in and they were giving that off, it was real easy to deflect and understand that existence is hard, and that their attitude and what they're giving me right now may not be specifically for me, but I'm here to try to change and hopefully so that we can have a good and peaceful night. So I did. I started out as an overnight monitor. This past year, I was given the privilege by Emily Norris to be shelter director, which was a whole nother thing in itself. And this past year, for the first time, we've always housed men and women, but this year we had a family site as well. So it was a very, very new and interesting endeavor of dealing with kids.
Yeah. And what are, as you kind of been on this walk in, especially within Winston-Salem, but you as well as being from New York as well, which I know has a homeless population. What would you say are some of the commonalities of systems, if you will, that you've kind of within the work that you do, that people aren't really aware of, or kind of there's misconceptions around it when it comes to doing the work that we do?
Well, I can say doing the work that I've done here, I've seen a lot more camping and things of that nature. I didn't see that as much, say, in New York. The folks sought out abandoned structures, which is also done here as well. But the difference, although you did ask me the commonality, the difference, though, is that folks here, being we're more south, do camp out and take advantage of the outdoors, whereas up north. But the commonality is, of course, the challenges, the barriers of once you're in that situation of being unhoused, it's very difficult to climb your way out. And even those that have the desire, and it's still very, very difficult in many cases. Like I said earlier, just the fact alone that you have all your belongings, and for someone who's trying to seek employment, like, what do you do with all your things and possibly not being able to address hygienic needs and to go to an interview? Those things don't necessarily align, but those are some of the common barriers and challenges that folks, I think, face. And then the lack of affordable housing, the system sometimes being stacked against you. I had a gentleman, a young gentleman this past shelter season, early 20s. He was a young father, and he was trying to seek employment, and he had a toddler. Here, the system was that he wasn't eligible for childcare unless he had a place to live and a stable job. Well, this is a person that was already behind the eight ball in that he was already homeless and trying to seek employment. So that service of childcare being offered to him at any kind of subsidy wasn't available to him. So again, that's a huge barrier. You're stuck with a toddler. You want to work, but you don't know where to leave your baby. So it's things of such that make being unhoused very, very challenging once you're in that situation. And yes, there are agencies and there's government assistance, but it's becoming less and less available.
Yeah, I think the barriers are a common misconception that I hear about a lot. It's like, why don't they just get a job? And like, well, you don't understand. You have to have all of these steps, and you have to have an address, which seems like such a small thing for all of us that have addresses. But to get your ID to even apply for a job. So, yeah, it's crazy, all of the things that you need that we don't even think about. It's not actually that simple as get a job.
want to kind of hone into that a little bit, because sometimes it feels like a kind of just like a big circle, like you said, that you can't really get out of, and there's things that seem to be in place to assist, but there's so many boxes you have to check before you can even get there. And so I would just love to know, and this could be something for the both of you guys, but like, how do you handle those type of conversations? Because it can be frustrating as well, but how do you, within the work that you've done and are doing, how do you continue to not stay hopeful within yourself, but also exude that to the community that you are helping?
I think that's one thing that I really appreciate about City with Dwellings. What our partner does is it's very low barrier that folks can just walk in the door and you're like, how can we help you? And like, just, no matter where people are on their journey, you all are willing to meet them there and, check the boxes with them and not say, oh, you have to do this and then come back before we can help you. So I really appreciate that.
Definitely
in y'all's
being
work.
heard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I'm going to go back, deflect towards the dwelling. There's that spiritual aspect of that certainly can't be neglected.
Mm.
And when people are in that hour of desperation and need, you have to call on something that's greater than yourself and bigger than yourself. And I try to, it's often a time that folks are not trying to hear much of anything. They just want help.
Mm-hmm.
They want their need met. But to remind them oftentimes that, yes, I do know what that feels like. I've been there, and that there is some light at the end of the tunnel. You just have to hold on and to have some faith.
Yeah, for
And,
sure.
that's a hard thing to do. But when you can show somebody that this is real, this is tangible, that can happen for you, you just have to have some faith. And I think that's a huge component.
Yeah, and I think that just is also a testament, like we spoke to earlier, of where that lived experience it creates space of a more vulnerable, open conversation versus you feeling like somebody's just telling you this, it's not as vague and it's not as lost. You know what I'm saying? Like knowing that there is, kind of just maybe role model is not a word, but like an example of that things can and will get better. Yeah, so we are going to just take a quick break and we'll be right back.
All right. Welcome back from that quick break. I want to circle back to winter shelter. So we started talking about how that was your beginnings, right? Being an overnight monitor, being a volunteer, and now this past winter you were the director of our winter shelter that was held every night.
Correct.
So I just want to talk a little bit about that, how that came to be. I know you and Pastor Emily are super close. So did she just call you up one day and be like, "Hey, you want to do this thing?" And how you came to be the director and how that felt for you.
Well, this year was the first year that the dwelling actually was the point organization in running the overflow. In past years, it had been City with Dwellings. And in that transition, Emily initially, she had always been involved and is considered one of the founders of City with Dwellings. That when she decided that she wanted to, that there wasn't going to be that gap in the system as far as running an overflow, with City with Dwellings not choosing not to do it any longer, that the dwelling was going to pick up the mantle, so to speak. And she said that on the onset that she knew that if this was something she wanted to do, that she wanted me in on it. And I, of course, was all the way down.
Yeah, of course. Did that feel like a sort of a full circle moment for you?
No, but I mean, I guess it just felt that I was right where I needed to be. You know,
Sure.
I felt that I was definitely saddened that we had a year where there wasn't any per se official overflow. There was a white flag, which just operates on nights when the weather meets a certain criteria, below 32 and dry, or I think it's 36 with precipitation.
Yeah.
But we knew that there was so many folks on many of the nights throughout the winter that didn't meet that criteria, that folks needed to be in, have a safe and warm place to go. So
Yeah, because I mean, if you're sleeping out in a tent, 37 and 32 aren't too much different.
You
They're
are
both cold.
absolutely right.
Yeah.
So Emily, yeah, she just asked if I would do it, and I was more than happy to step up.
That's awesome.
And so, as someone who is, I'm not as familiar with you guys as Shelter. So, what does director? What does that entail? What were you in charge of?
I can't say everything, but pretty much.
But everything.
Yeah, everything. From scheduling the monitors, overnight monitors. There was a pretty robust online system for volunteers to sign up, which is extremely helpful. From the early days, we didn't have anything as such, and there was a lot of phone calls and a lot of sometimes holes in schedules because of we thought somebody was showing up and they, just a miscommunication. So the online platform for signing up volunteers has been a tremendous gift to us as far as trying to run overflow shelter. And then just the overall functioning of the shelter, making the call as to staying open or open later if the weather was extremely inclement, and decisions like that.
So, was it always? So this was, you guys said it every night, but make it. That was for months, right?
It was officially for 90 days. We had funding this year for 90 days. We ran a men's and women for 90 days, and we ran the family site for 60 from January 1st through February 28th.
And for you all to have these sites, is that were you kind of also on the team to try to find these sites and build these relationships that you guys have already had? Because I believe one of them was a new partnership.
Yeah, Calvary Moravian was a new partnership where the family site was. We had the men at the dwelling at our space, and St. Timothy's housed the women, and they've been partnering with us from the very beginning. St. Tim's,
Yeah, they're super great. Shout out St. Tim's and
Yeah,
Calvary.
for sure.
They were amazing partners this winter.
Yeah, we can't forget First Pres and Augsburg, and Centennial has been definitely instrumental in providing space
And other partnerships. Tell us more about how you guys were able to offer food at the site.
Well, each night at the women's site, there was a sign up, and various church organizations or civic groups or what have you could sign up and provide the meal for the evening. And again, it's to have the opportunity to have the online system of
It was a
being
game
able,
changer.
it was a huge game changer. Yeah. At the warming space, what we called our warming space, which was primarily the men's site for this past season. Unfortunately, due to funding, we weren't able to provide a full meal, but every night they had a soup or some sort of chili. The nights that there were gaps, there was pizza. So we did our very, very best to provide something sustaining and warm for the men as well.
Shout out to Mama Lisa
For sure,
getting
Mama
all that
Lisa.
soup together.
Yes, we did. The soup brigade.
Yeah, the soup brigade. She had a whole team of folks out in the city just
Yes.
making pots and pots of soup for us. So
Yeah,
that was awesome.
I helped out a few nights at shelter, and there was like I can't think of the name of it. It was really good. I don't know. Like the cabbage soup.
Oh yeah, okay.
Had like cabbage and sausage, I don't know. It was
Almost like
amazing.
a gumbo.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, that was really good. That was. I love that.
Well, there's something to be said about like not only the hospitality of having a warm place to sleep, but a warm meal.
Absolutely.
Because I'm sure folks were a lot less cranky after dinner than when they first came in.
Mm-hmm. And I think that I'm curious to know where you I don't think shocked is the word, but the numbers that you all did this year, even as we, City with Dwellings and open hours, we and Brittany does this on Sundays. You guys have a system where you keep track of the numbers. Was it something you were expecting, or were you still kind of like, even with the 3 sites, were you kind of like, wow, like this is a lot of people here?
Yeah, I mean, I think I want to say about 760 unique individuals for the 90 days.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And it was shocking, but we were expecting, and unfortunately we expect that number to rise. In providing that overflow shelter, many of what we've referred to them as our guests are known to us. They're known to us through. We have an open hours, a day center at City with Dwellings, and we're open Monday through Wednesday from 2 to 4. And we provide a mail service, and people can come in and use the phone and computers, and we're trying to provide that sense of community where folks can come and gather and kind of take a load off for a little bit. So many of these folks are known to us, so that when the winter comes along, we expect to see many of these same individuals. This past season, though, there were so many new individuals, folks that we had no relationship with. It's sad in the sense that that the need is increasing. The beautiful part about it is that we're making new relationships and building community.
Absolutely.
And I do want to touch on the fact that at City with Dwellings, you guys do a lot of different things. I know you spoke on some of the things, but you also have processes to help people get into housing. I believe you all helped Ron, who was our previous guest, get his dog certified as a service dog. And I'm pretty sure there's many of things that like I'm not aware of. So would you mind just kind of expanding a bit on what it is that you guys do? Because it's a lot of things.
There is a lot of things. And primarily it's I think Brittany mentioned it earlier. It's a lot of walking alongside and trying to navigate the systems that are in place the best way we can. We do some diversion, which is if someone comes to us and they're in need of housing, we'll initially try to see if there's any resources that they have that are unknown to them or that they may not realize that they have. And that often is trying to reconnect with any family or friends that may be available to them. In which case, there are some instances where we'll provide bus tickets to reunite folks if they reside out of state. And then again, the resource navigation as far as trying to align people with certain subsidies that they may be available to them. At present, for the last 5 years, there's a program called the HEART program, and it was geared towards really trying to house the most chronic, difficult individuals that are experiencing homelessness, those that don't even seek out the traditional services. So these are the folks that are, during the winter months, don't even come into our overflow. So we try to identify those individuals in our community, and we began with outreaching, and we realized that in many cases, those individuals would not benefit from trying to get the birth certificate and the Social Security card and have all those things up front. That we would want that they would possibly benefit more by providing them with housing first, and then try to deal with all that other stuff on the back end.
Yeah.
And there was a local realtor here in town that provided some units, and we started with 5 units, and we just slowly but surely started filling them. And as a peer support, I live alongside them. And it's been game-changing for the last going on 6 years. You know, we've had many success stories, and we've had some challenging situations as well. But oftentimes, those that have been experienced homelessness for multiple years, and just placing them in housing, in many cases, the likelihood of them succeeding after experiencing homelessness for such a long period of time is very small.
Yeah.
So that providing the extra assistance and support just increase their odds in staying housed.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming and chatting with us, and just for all you do and all you'll continue to do.
Well, thank you for having me.
Of course.
Yeah, you're welcome. We're glad for you and for your heart for this community. Glad to work alongside you. So, my friends, viewers, listeners, I never know what to call you all. All of the
dwellers.
Dwellers. Don't forget, you can email us your feedback, any questions, or comments you have from our podcast episodes, and ideas or inspirations for next season, which is going to be coming up in the fall. We have, so our email is dwellingbeyond@thedwellingws.org. And we've got one more episode for you this season coming up in another 2 weeks. Then we'll take a break for the summer and be back with season 2. We're real excited about all of that. So thank you for dwelling beyond with us.
All right. See you on the next one.